She walked into that hospital thinking she was there to save her sister, but she walked out discovering she was never part of the family at all. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about truth, identity, and the moment your entire life rewrites itself in a single sentence. Drop a comment with where you're watching from, hit subscribe. And let's dive into the story of the woman who gave everything to a family that was never hers. Her name was Mara Ellen, and at 32, she thought she finally understood what family meant. She believed love meant patience, and loyalty meant silence. She had spent years practicing both. Even when her younger sister Kina turned her childhood into a trail of small wounds that never healed, Mara stayed quiet. But nothing prepared her for that hospital room. White walls, humming lights, and the sharp smell of disinfectant, where she stood frozen as her own medical papers lay ripped across the floor like confetti. Her mother, Helen, was shouting that Mara was letting Kina die. Her father, Victor, called her the family's biggest disappointment. They wanted something no parent should ever demand: half her liver. What the attending doctor would soon uncover in that room would change everything Mara thought she knew about blood, truth, and belonging. She grew up in Cedar Glen, a quiet Vermont suburb where the neighbors smiled too much and judged too little. Their street was full of maple trees and pie contests. From the day Kina came home wrapped in a pink blanket, the rules of their family were written. Mara's job was to understand. Kina's job was to be adored. "Mara, let your sister have that," became a daily command, no matter what that was: toys, clothes, even affection. When Mara turned 8, she spent weeks building a butterfly exhibit for the science fair. Wings labeled, drawings perfect. But the night before it was due, she came home to find the board bent and covered in glue. Kina stood in the doorway, smirking. "Oops." Mara ran to her parents in tears. Victor only sighed. "You shouldn't have left it where she could reach it. You know how curious she is." That was the night Mara realized no one would protect her. By middle school, Kina's tricks grew sharper. When Mara's best friend slept over, Kina whispered lies behind closed doors. Mara said you talk too much. By morning, the friendship cracked. Sister rivalry. Helen laughed when Mara tried to explain. Victor shrugged. It'll toughen you up. So Mara built her strength in silence. She studied harder, worked faster, earned A's that nobody framed. Kina's 1B- still earned balloons. In high school, Kina discovered parties, bad vodka, and chaos. She crashed Victor's car, failed classes, and was caught with pills. The punishment? A spa-style rehab and hugs. Mara watched from the sidelines, the quiet daughter, the one who didn't break things. When her college acceptance letter arrived, her parents were too busy worrying about Kina's suspension to notice Mara's shaking hands. Leaving for college felt like breathing for the first time. 2 states away, she built a life of her own. Late nights in design studios, friends who cared, professors who saw her. She learned what peace felt like. After graduation, she moved to Boston, joined a creative firm, and set firm boundaries with her family. No loans to Kina, no guilt calls, no rescues. At 28, she met Evan Cross in a coffee shop during an argument about font spacing. They laughed, then stayed. Evan was gentle, steady, the kind of man who saw pain even when she hid it well. When she once told him how Kina had pushed her down the stairs as a child and her parents had called it horseplay, Evan's voice turned low. "That's not horseplay, Mara. That's abuse." Therapy helped her find the words she had been missing all her life. "You were parentified and scapegoated," Dr. Vargas said kindly. "Your sister was the golden child." Labels didn't erase scars, but they mapped them. By 32, Mara thought she had outrun the old choreography. Until one gray October morning, her phone rang. "Mara," Helen's voice trembled through the line. "It's Kina. She's in the hospital. Her liver is failing. Please, we need you." Mara's hand went cold. She almost let it ring out. She didn't. Family duty still pulled like a chain. Evan packed her a bag. "You don't owe anyone your body," he said softly. But she drove east anyway, toward the ghosts of Riverside General Hospital. The hospital smelled like bleach and fear. In the ICU waiting room, Mara found her parents sitting side by side, their faces worn from years of worry, or maybe guilt. Helen jumped up the moment she saw her. "Thank God you came," she cried. "She needs you, Mara. You're her only hope." Dr. Sloan, a calm woman with silver hair, appeared holding a tablet. "Your sister's condition is critical. A living liver donor might save her." "It must be voluntary," she emphasized. "Voluntary?" Victor scoffed. "She's family. Of course she'll do it." Mara's throat tightened. "I said I'll think about it." Helen's voice snapped like glass. "Think. She's dying." Dr. Sloan's tone remained even. "Miss Ellen, surgery carries serious risks: infection, internal bleeding, long recovery. You should take your time." When Mara finally saw Kina, she barely recognized her. Pale skin, trembling hands, eyes too big for her face. "Hey, big sis," Kina whispered. "Sorry for all the trouble." Her voice cracked. For a heartbeat, Mara saw the little girl in pink pajamas again. "When did this start?" Mara asked. Kina's lips quivered. "Last year. I tried to quit drinking, but I couldn't." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I'm scared." That night, Mara sat in her childhood room, now a cluttered office, talking to Evan on the phone. "They want my liver," she said. "Half of it." His voice was steady. "It's your choice, Mara, not theirs." Her friend Callie was harsher when Mara called her next. "Don't let them guilt you again. They've been using you your whole life." She spent the night reading medical studies. Donors took months to recover. Some never felt the same. Yet the guilt burned. By morning, her head pounded with numbers and what-ifs. Dr. Sloan met her privately and spoke softly. "You have a right to decline. If anyone pressures you, tell us." Mara nodded but didn't promise. Downstairs, her parents were waiting. "You're doing it, right?" Helen asked. Victor's eyes hardened. "Your sister doesn't have time for your hesitation." Mara clenched her jaw. "This isn't easy. I have a job, a life, and your sister's life is more important than your career," Helen snapped. "Don't be selfish." Mara walked away before she cried. That evening, when she drove back to Boston to think, her parents beat her there. They had a spare key she'd never taken back. Helen stood in the doorway, red-eyed. "We gave you everything," she said. "And now you can't even give a piece of yourself?" Mara's voice broke. "You gave me a childhood of neglect." Victor shouted. "We raised you. You owe us." "No," Mara said quietly. "I don't." After they left, she crumpled to the floor. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kina. "Thanks for proving you never loved me. Guess I'll die then." The words blurred. She couldn't breathe. Callie came over and sat beside her till dawn, whispering, "You don't owe them your body, Mara." The next day, her parents showed up at her office. Helen cried in the lobby, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Please, she's dying. My daughter won't save her own sister." Mara's boss, Nadia, pulled her aside. "Take a week off," she said softly. "Sort this out." The shame burned hotter than any fever. Messages poured in from relatives, pastors, and neighbors. "Family means sacrifice," one email read. "What kind of sister are you?" another said. Even Helen's church friends knocked on her door with casseroles and lectures. The pressure was endless, like a storm without a pause. Finally, Mara agreed to testing, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't fight anymore. Blood drawn, ultrasound, psychological evaluation. The psychologist, Dr. Keene, had kind eyes. "Do you feel pressure to donate?" she asked. Mara hesitated, then whispered, "Yes. My parents said I'm not their daughter if I refuse." Dr. Keene's pen stopped. "Then you're disqualified. Coercion voids consent." Relief flooded her chest. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe. But by afternoon, her parents found out. Helen stormed into the cafeteria, eyes blazing. "You failed on purpose," she hissed. "You lied to that doctor." Victor's voice thundered. "You're letting your sister die." The scene drew stares. A security guard approached. "Everything okay here?" "No," Victor barked. "Our daughter's a coward." Helen cried louder. Mara felt the world spin. "Fine," she said. "I'll retake the evaluation." Silence fell. Victor smiled faintly. Good girl. Mara felt sick. The next morning, she lied through every answer. No, no one pressured me. Yes, I'm sure. Dr. Sloan frowned but said nothing. A week later, she came in for final compatibility testing. The nurse's voice was cheerful. Your sister's lucky, she said while drawing blood. Mara stared at the cotton taped to her arm, numb. She waited hours in a bland room until Dr. Sloan returned, face unreadable. We have your results, she said softly. There's an unexpected finding. Mara's pulse quickened. Am I not compatible? You're not a match, Dr. Sloan said. But it's more than that. The tissue markers show you and Kina aren't biologically related. Mara blinked. That's not possible. We ran the test twice, Dr. Sloan said. You and Kina don't share enough DNA to be siblings. The room spun. You're saying I'm not their daughter? Dr. Sloan hesitated. We should tell them together. When her parents entered, Helen's face went pale. Is she cleared? She asked. Dr. Sloan looked at them gently. I'm sorry. The results confirm Mara and Kina aren't biologically related. Victor's face hardened. That's impossible. Helen's lips trembled. Run it again. We already did, Dr. Sloan said quietly. It's conclusive. Helen sank into a chair, eyes wide with fear. Victor crossed his arms, jaw tight. Mara's voice cracked. Did you know? Helen whispered. We adopted you. Silence stretched like wire. The air itself seemed to disappear. You what? Mara whispered. Helen started to cry. You were a miracle. We couldn't have children. Our pastor introduced us to a young woman who needed help. We thought we were giving you a home. Victor added coldly. We raised you. That should be enough. Mara stood, shaking. You lied to me my whole life. Helen reached for her. We were going to tell you when you were older. Then Kina was born. It got complicated. Complicated? Mara snapped. You let me live a lie. You let her treat me like trash while calling me your daughter. She left before they could answer. In her car, she screamed until her throat burned. Her phone buzzed again, and again her parents, the hospital, Kina. She ignored them all and called Evan. Can you meet me at home? She asked, voice breaking. I'm already on my way, he said without hesitation. For a week, Mara hid in her apartment. Evan cooked, Callie brought soup, and silence became her medicine. One night, she whispered, all those years they said I had grandma's eyes. Evan took her hand. You don't need their features to belong somewhere. When she could finally breathe again, she drove to Cedar Glen. Her parents looked small in the living room. Who was she? Mara asked. Helen wiped her nose. Her name was Rowan Ellis. 17. From Michigan. She wanted you to have a stable life. You kept her letters? Mara asked. Victor fetched a cedar box. Inside were adoption papers, 2 faded envelopes, and a photo of a young woman with auburn hair and a soft smile. Mara touched the photo gently. Did Kina know? No, Victor said quickly. We never told her either. Helen whispered. Rowan wrote twice. We were advised not to respond. You hid that from me, Mara said. From her. Helen nodded through tears. We thought it was best. That night, Mara sat at her kitchen table surrounded by documents. The truth looked heavy in paper form. She ordered DNA kits, hired a private investigator, and searched for Rowan Ellis. Weeks later, her phone rang. Mara? The voice was warm, trembling. This is Rowan. They talked for 3 hours. Rowan told her everything, the church adoption, the pressure from her parents, the years of searching. I wanted you, she said through tears. I just couldn't keep you. Mara cried silently. Rowan had 2 other children now, Jonah and Mira, and a husband named Daniel. If you'd like, she said gently, we can meet. Before Mara could reply, the hospital called. Kina had received a deceased donor liver. The surgery was successful. Relief flooded her. Messy, complicated relief. The next month, she flew to California to meet Rowan. When she saw her at the airport, auburn hair streaked with silver, Time seemed to fold. "You're here," Rowan whispered, tears spilling. "You're really here." They spent hours talking. Rowan told her about finishing nursing school, about regret, about how love can stretch across decades. The next day, Mara met Jonah and Mira. Jonah hugged her so tightly she laughed. "We used to make up stories about you," Mira said shyly. "Astronaut, artist, queen." Mara smiled. "Designer," she corrected. "Close enough," Jonah said, grinning. For the first time in her life, Mara felt seen, not because someone needed something from her, but because they wanted her. Over dinner, Daniel said softly, "Your mother never stopped looking for you." Later, Rowan handed her a folder of medical records and whispered, "You deserve to know your own story." Back in Boston, Evan proposed under a sky streaked with orange. "Mara Ellen, will you marry me?" he said, voice shaking. She smiled. "Yes." Weeks later, a letter arrived from Kina. "I'm sorry," it read. "I was cruel because I felt small. I'm in therapy, sober 5 months. You owe me nothing, but I hope one day you'll forgive me." Mara folded it and placed it in her drawer, not ready to answer, but ready to heal. As autumn settled, Mara began to build a new kind of family: weekly calls with Rowan, quiet lunches with Helen, group texts with Jonah, and Mira full of bad jokes. She learned that family wasn't about blood. It was about honesty and choice. Sometimes she still thought of that hospital room, the papers torn across the floor. That day, she realized the truth wasn't a wound. It was a key, one that finally unlocked her own life. And please don't forget to tap the bell, so every new folktale reaches you first. Tell us in the comments what you think about the story. And tell us where you're watching from. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this beautiful story with friends, family, and loved ones so they too can remember.